Hey everybody, this is my 29-gallon miscellaneous tank, and tonight we're going to have a look at the filter. When I first started keeping fish, I didn't know anything about the nitrogen cycle. I certainly didn't understand how beneficial bacteria worked, and I didn't know what the biosponge in my hang on the back filter was. And so when I was doing my filter changes, I was replacing the filter pads, but I was actually cleaning my biosponges. Again, I did not know what they were. I thought they were some sort of coarse mechanical filter, and it didn't make sense to me that they were on the downstream flow of the much finer filter, which would be the filter pads. And so eventually I figured out that these little sponges are actually your biological filtration in the tank, or your biofilters. So, briefly, if you're not familiar with how all this stuff works, you have what is called a nitrogen cycle in your tank, and that is a process whereby the ammonia that is produced is oxidized by, or you can just think of it as being eaten by, a particular species of bacteria that live in your tank, and their waste product is nitrite. And there's another species of bacteria in your tank that eats the nitrite, and then its waste product is nitrate. And then, of course, we do our water changes, and that's how we remove the nitrates from our tank. And that, in a nutshell, is your nitrogen cycle. So where this little biofilter comes into play is this is the real estate where all your little microscopic bacteria live. And the more surface area, the better, up to a point. Obviously, once you've got enough bacteria living in your tank, you don't need any more. But eventually, even though we really should leave this alone for the most part, and just let it do its thing and let those bacterial cultures live on this, at some point you have to clean it. You can see how the water is just simply not flowing through it at this point. It's all gunky and thick and dirty, and as soon as I pull it out, we have water flow again. As soon as I put it back in, it just backs up and we begin getting the water flow over here. So this is not really doing its job if the water is not flowing through it. The bacteria lives all over that sponge, all through it. And basically the water needs to flow through it in order to come in contact with that bacteria so it can oxidize your ammonia and your nitrate. So we need to clean these occasionally, but we need to do it correctly so that we don't kill our bacterial cultures. We still need to have that living culture going on in the tank. So in my case, I have well water, and I don't have to worry about chlorine or chloramine or anything like that that might damage my bacteria. So I can just use my tap water and I can rinse my sponges out right in the sink. But if you can't, or if you're not sure, then it's best to use tank water. When you're doing a water change on your tank anyway, you just get in there and you use some of the tank water, and I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. You can do it any way you want as long as we accomplish the same end result. So let's assume that this water here is water that just came out of the fish tank. We're doing a water change. I've got my bucket. This will be my bucket. We take the sponge, and again, you can see how thick, it's just almost solid looking. And I basically, well, let's not do this right here on top of the fish tank. That's probably asking for trouble. So I just take it and do that. Squeeze it, scrunch it around. Really break that stuff loose. Notice I'm not pulling it out and wringing it out. I don't want this to be clean like it's just brand new out of the box. I want it to be clean enough that all the physical gum and stuff that develops in here and builds up in here is broken loose. You see how we can see it looks like a sponge again? And it doesn't have to be perfect. If you've got some thick, areas where it's still a little thick and grungy, that's okay. Again, you're better off leaving it a little dirtier than a little too clean. Now remember, bacteria is microscopic, so even though this looks like it might be pretty clean, it's still covered in bacteria. and that's what we want. So there's all my filthy, nasty water that is really, really valuable. If you're trying to cycle in a new tank, this is what you want to use, not dirty tank water. You take your biosponge and you scrub it out, and now this is gold for a tank that you're trying to get cycled in quickly. That is loaded with all of the bacteria you need. So our sponge now, once again, looks like a sponge. You can actually sort of see some of the tank light coming through it. And when we put it back in, you can see the water is freely flowing through it. Now we still got to do that to this one. We're still getting a little bit of backflow, and I am going to come back here and change the filters here in a moment. But that's what you do, and you can scrub it out any way you want. Like I said, if you want to pull the sponge out of the plastic holder that it's in and squeeze it out that way, that's fine. Just so long as you don't wring it out and wash it in hot soapy water, and don't scrub it in hydrogen peroxide. Don't do any of the things that you might think would kill bacteria. Don't clean it with soapy water. Don't clean it in scalding hot water. Don't clean it in your tap water if your tap water has ammonia. If you have to treat the tap water to put it in your aquarium, then don't scrub your filters out in it. Those filters, the life that lives in these filters is the most important life in your aquarium. Without that life, none of the other life could exist. So you have to take your nitrogen cycle very, very seriously. And when you maintain your biosponge like that, just keep that in mind. You don't want to, you don't want to clean that sponge to the point where you're sterilizing it. You simply want to clean it to the point where you've broken the scummy crud loose enough that water flows through it again, and that's it. That's the extent of how much you want to clean it. So there you go. That's tonight's quick update video. If you want to call that quick, I guess 7 minutes is quick for me. So thanks for watching. Don't forget, this one is my 29-gallon miscellaneous tank, and I will see you real soon in the next one.